Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic.
For those who stopped smoking weed, what was the main reason? I had the realization that when I smoked, which was daily, I was sat on the couch watching my life pass me by. The real kicker. When high, I was perfectly fine with that. Well, Stan, the truth is marijuana probably isn't gonna make you kill people, and it most likely isn't gonna fund terrorism, but, well son, pot makes you feel fine with being bored, and it's when you're bored that you should be learning some new skill or discovering some new science or being creative. South Park. And now everyone has a cell phone. So now instead of ever getting bored and learning new stuff, everyone is pacified with their favorite mindless cell phone activity. Damn it. I was using it to cope with past negative experiences while forgetting the good experiences in life. Now I take my suffering straight. I like my suffering raw too. Au natural baby, that's how I like, Swing loose sweet chariots. I watched the latest Kurzgesagt video on weed, and this was one of the points that hit the hardest. When you smoke weed habitually to hide from your emotions, it becomes impossible to grow as a person. Feeling and dealing with conflict, emotions is a huge part of life, and if you don't confront them directly, your emotional intelligence becomes stagnant. I feel like you could replace this with any vice tbh. It made me take a passive role in my own life, and I finally decided that while I enjoyed smoking, it wasn't serving my growth as a person. That's my biggest fear with weed, it makes you content with doing nothing. Which explains why people's whole personalities can become about weed, because that's all they're doing with their life. Pot makes you feel fine with being bored, and it's when you're bored that you should be learning some new skill. Randy Marsh of Tegrity Farms. It stopped being fun. Sort of similar here. I think I just got a bit tired of it. 15 plus years of smoking basically every day, went on holiday for 2 weeks and didn't smoke at all, realized that I didn't really miss it at all, so thought I'd see how long I could go without it. It's been over 6 years now. This was exactly my approach. It just wasn't fun anymore. Maybe noticing more anxiety while doing it. Too much of a lazy habit that kept me in the couch doing nothing. I went on vacation for a couple of weeks and didn't smoke at all, then when I got home I just didn't pick it back up for a while. Now it's only occasional, not an everyday habit. Man, how I miss getting the giggles. I've taken year-long breaks just to see if they would come back, and they never have. Those were the days. Now it's just a mere feeling. Puts me in my head instead of distracting me from it. Not fun, right? The giggles were the peak experience. Now it's like chasing a high that doesn't exist anymore. Maybe it's not the weed that changed, it's us women shrugging. I quit for like 20 years. It recently became legal for recreational use where I live. Got a little vape pen, like a 80% one, my wife and I took one tiny hit and we were so stoned for hours. It almost scared me for the first couple min when it set in, but then we laughed and laughed till our stomachs hurt. It's crazy how far weed has come in the past couple decades. Removed. Exact same reason. My friends are astonished I could quit and ask me how I had the willpower. Bro, the weed told me to stop doing weed. Same here. I can do it rarely now if someone has a joint or whatever, but I don't think I could ever go back to using it daily like I was. It just started making my anxiety and intrusive thoughts worse and harder to manage. Removed. I'm surprised more people aren't answering for employment reasons. There's a lot of jobs that have stopped testing for it since it's legal a lot of places. Plus, at least on my state, they legally can't test you for it pre-employment except for certain types of jobs or positions that require sobriety in general. After years of smoking, I realized I didn't even like it anymore. It made feel shitty and made me lazy. And, as I've seen others say, the worst part is it makes you feel fine with sitting there doing nothing with your time while your life is just passing you by. Same here. Eventually I realized I liked the idea of getting high more than actually getting high. I'd be excited to come home and rip one, but then it turned me into a slug, and 4 hours later I'd be like, was that even worth it? Quote. It made me very paranoid and antisocial. I noticed after I stopped that my friends who didn't stop were all paranoid and antisocial to some degree, so I don't regret it. I do think some people seem to be less affected by it than others. But it affects everyone to some degree. Yeah, the paranoia is very real, and I see a lot of people here seem to have the same experience. It made me very antisocial as well, one of the reasons I stopped too, but I feel like I am still very introverted even sober. But that's my personality more likely. I haven't smoked real weed in almost 2 years now. I think most people hear paranoia and they think, Charlie's in the trees man, delusions. When in reality you are just paranoid that you sound like you just said something incredibly stupid, or, ah man, I bet they know I am high and think I am dumb. That fear of judgment by others bleeds into everything. Especially as you get older and your brain kind of settles into societal patterns. Was doing it with tons of other stuff, coke mainly, and decided that's not great. 25 days clean. That's awesome, very proud of you. Keep it up. The insufferable panic attacks that randomly started happening every time I smoked and lasted for 3 fucking days afterwards. Bro, what is this? I was a daily smoker for years. Then one day, boom, absolute existential dread coupled with this intrusive self-doubt and shame about even the most mundane things. It was so strange because it did literally the exact opposite for me up until that point. This is so real. Used to go through an eighth every couple days. Now when I smoke a single hit from a bowl, one sit there for 20 minutes and legitimately spiral that I potentially sounded stupid in an email I sent at work the other day. It gives my missus psychotic episodes with her bipolar disorder, so the last time it happened I told her that when she got out of hospital I'd no longer grow it, use it myself or have it anywhere in the house so that she wasn't tempted to try it again. So I haven't. TBH, I'd love a joint, but it's just not worth risking her thinking that next time will be different for her and trying it again, and B, she did like getting high in the stages before psychosis took over, so if she saw me doing something she can no longer do I'd feel I was rubbing her nose in it a bit. You're a good spouse. Anxiety, sluggishness, forgetfulness just made me a real bum and was overall dependent on it. Yeah, I kept coming up with excuses as to what else was causing my anxiety and everything else you said. Turns out it was mostly the weed, even if taking an edible only once a week. Also, for me I found that when I was sober I couldn't stop thinking about my workday ending so I could get high. However, as soon as I'd be high, I would feel guilt and tell myself I need to stop getting high. Clearly that wasn't healthy. Not sure what happened, but one day I had a panic attack while high, and now I just get super anxious when I smoke. It's not enjoyable in the slightest. During the panic attack, did you also get a tunnel vision, felt some electric zaps inside your head, and lost your balance thinking you were dying? Definitely had tunnel vision and shortness of breath, and went down a real negative tunnel mentally. Really turned me off the whole thing immediately. The electric zaps were so real but very difficult to describe. Almost feeling like I'm dissociating then coming back would cause it. Cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. Ended up in the almost had kidney failure due to dehydration and the constant unlimited vomiting that doesn't stop until you quit. CHS sufferer here too. Good fucking god, I have never felt sicker in my entire life, and it's a unique type of sick. I smoked multiple times a day for 2 to 3 years and then it hit me like a truck in 2019-2020. When it came time to stop so it could clear out of my system, it took like 6 months before I truly started to feel better. In the beginning, the vomiting and vertigo genuinely made me want to kill myself. Like you, I was having kidney issues and had to have some trips for fluids because I couldn't keep anything down. Water would just come right back up. I remember laying on my back in my bed. Curtains drawn, room spinning regardless of whether I closed my eyes or not. All I could do was drink like 1/4 to 1/2 cup of water and wait for it to come back up 10 minutes later. The sweet moment of relief that I'd have post-vomiting. And then 2 to 3 minutes later I'd start the process over. It was hell. Scream vomiting was fucking real. The ER staff knew me. I threw up on the side of the road twice driving myself to the before I decided I had to make a change. Same. The violence of this sickness is like nothing I've ever experienced before. But, in my case, it made the quitting part much easier. I'm a fairly angry person, and the pot would help me chill out. Without it, it was just me and my rage, and that was no fun at all. So, now I'm digging in and trying to figure out where that anger is coming from. Basically, I'm facing it. And, slowly but surely, it seems to be working, knock on wood. PSA re CHS, hot showers. Yeah, this last bout I had scared the shit out of me because the showers didn't help. It's so strange to finally see other people believe this is real. This happened to me 15 years ago. I posted on Reddit, and people told me I had dysentery. A nurse here. I see the misery and it's not fun. We throw all the anti-nausea medications at these guys and nothing works. Haldol does seem to help eventually. Haldol helped me. Thank you for being a nurse, and trust me, us who suffer from this are extremely thankful for your help because it is the absolute worst feeling in the world going through this. I've quit smoking weed after 20 years. I'm so thankful people actually believe this is real. 15 years ago I posted on Reddit about it and people trashed me and told me I had dysentery. Haldol literally saved my life. Thank you for being compassionate. A few nurses years ago treated me like a junkie looking for drugs and made me leave with nothing. Yep. I got to point where only Haldol or droperidol worked. Decided that was enough. What would happen if it stopped working like the Zofran and Phenergan stopped working? No thank you. Took a while to get my sleep and anxiety meds sorted. But now I don't even need sleep meds. I sleep more regularly, have more energy now. The good. Weed was a turning point for me because it forced me to finally address some deeply buried thoughts, questions like, who am I, what am I doing with my life, and why do I feel so worthless sometimes? This honest self-reflection led me to switch majors and take on challenges I'd never have tackled otherwise, all of which ended up shaping me into a more focused and driven person. In many ways, weed gave me the clarity I needed to figure out my real passions and commit to them. The bad. At the same time, getting high felt so incredible that almost everything else started to lose its appeal. When I was high, life was fascinating. I felt like I could delve deeper into any topic, figure out solutions to every problem, and just see the world in a richer, more vibrant way. But once the high wore off, I felt empty and dull, like a blank shell of myself. I started believing that the only time the world had any color was when I was high. My social anxiety also got worse. I'd stay in my room to avoid feeling self-conscious, even though I knew I needed to get out more. When it got rough, I was an engineering student with big dreams, yet I found myself cutting my study time short just to chase that high, directly clashing with my goal of excelling in my field. I also needed to work on projects, prepare for interviews, and start applying for jobs. But it was during COVID, and being at home all day made it way too easy to give in to temptation, right when this was arguably one of the most crucial periods for a university student. Everything I'd worked so hard for led up to this moment, and it was heartbreaking to realize that the same substance that once gave me clarity was now sabotaging my ambitions. Recognizing addiction. I knew things were spiraling when I couldn't stop, even as I promised myself every night would be the last time. I'd get as high as possible, telling myself tomorrow I'd quit for good, then I'd just fall into the same cycle again. Quitting for good. After about 6 years of on and off use, I finally quit around 4 years ago. It was hands down one of the hardest things I've ever done. At this point, I don't plan on going back because I doubt I'd have the willpower to quit again, especially now that I've achieved many of the goals weed originally helped me discover. You just put into words that I never could about my critical pro of being addicted to weed. For me, it made me think so deeply about myself and my life, how much of a failure I was and why, that it made me change and achieve the things I wanted to achieve. It also made me realize that as much as sober me convinced me that I was fine smoking weed all the time to get by, stoned me will call me out on that bullshit and knew that I need to give it up. I would absolutely hate myself for getting high, but then sober me would convince me that it's so much better than being sober. I was having a mental war with my relationship with weed, and quitting was honestly the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I relapsed more times I could count.